Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about bad news messages. Bad news message is just what you think when you are in a position where you've got to tell people something they don't want to hear. This may be that you've rejected an idea they proposed, like, sorry, we're not actually going to be able to change the name of the university even though it doesn't meet your personal preferences, or you're going to have to turn down a favor like, no, sorry, actually we can't give you next Friday off because we have too many people missing already. Or perhaps it's rejecting a customer service request, such as, I'm sorry, we can't actually let you exchange this product that you clearly spilled Kool-Aid all over, therefore breaking yourself. So those are the situations where you have to share bad news, news that clearly people don't want to hear. Now, the goals when you're giving bad news is first to make your decision clear. Okay, you want to make sure that there's no question as to what the message was. It's stated emphatically and clearly. Okay? When we have to remember, especially in bad news messages, that every piece of written business communication is a legal document. It can be used from there on out in a court of law. Therefore, if there's ambiguity in your message, people can use it to fight back against you. So make sure it is black and white. This is the decision that has been made. Second, you have to help the receiver accept the message. There are a couple ways you can do that. Thinking back to the interpersonal skills we've discussed this semester, make it as tailored and personal as possible. Okay, try to avoid the form letter if you can. Now, if your company mandates a form letter, that's out of your hands, but if you have the power to write the message yourself, then make it as personalized as possible and explain yourself well. Just giving them a decision with no background does not help them process the information at all. It just creates more uncertainty. Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? The better you explain yourself, the better it is for the person receiving the message. And you want to make sure to maintain goodwill. The best way to do this is by using I language instead of you language, again, as we talked about in interpersonal. Now, that means that you're not talking about you did this wrong or you're a bad person. It's here's in general what happened. This is the company's policy. Here's what I'm being told to tell you. Okay, you try to use the word you as few times as possible, preferably never when you're writing bad news. Prevent any unnecessary discussion. Again, this goes back to being clear. You have to make sure that you explain very concisely and clearly what the message is, and then support it such there is no question as to whether or not there is room to change this message. The more back and forth you open the door for, the more follow-up, the higher the possibility that people are going to get emotionally loaded. And our natural response to emotionally loaded messages is to respond with emotions ourselves. We can't do that in the business setting because, again, of the highly legal nature of business documents. Next, you need to preserve the company's image. Never, ever, ever blame the company for the bad news. In fact, try to explain it in ways that are external to the company. And protect the company against lawsuits. Never say you're sorry when you're writing bad news, because by saying you're sorry, it indicates that there is something that you are responsible for. And if you're claiming responsibility in a legal document, then that could be used in a court of law to say, but you've admitted fault. If you said you're sorry, clearly you had something to be sorry for. So never, ever, ever say that you're sorry in a bad news document. Now, when you're writing bad news, you need to decide, first of all, is this a big bad news message or a little bad news message? Because there's a different format for it. If it's a little bad news message, then you don't need to be formal in your writing. For instance, if the internet is going to be out on campus for 3 hours this weekend, that's little bad news. That doesn't substantively impact someone's future. So a quick 1 or 2 word email that says, Dear students, or if we're being more specific, Dear Aggies, the internet will be down from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Saturday. Best tech support. That's perfectly acceptable for little bad news because someone may be inconvenienced, but their life course is not altered. You're fired is big bad news. Big bad news we address in a very specific way, by sandwiching. What I mean by that is we present good news, then the bad news, and then more good news. Okay? It's called buffering. Okay? We want to help people get mentally prepared to accept the bad news. We want to actually lead them towards the idea that something's about to hit them. We give them the bad news, and then we try to build them back up. For instance, in your assignment this week, you're going to be writing a bad news letter on behalf of a nonprofit organization saying, gee, volunteers, we're sorry, but we only met 80% of our goals with the fundraiser. Okay? So one of the ways that you might want to address this is by, first, as it's big bad news, anything dealing with money is big bad news. First, you might want to start your introductory paragraph by talking about what the volunteers did well. All the reasons that you're proud of them and that you're grateful for them. Okay, that's good. Then you lead into, unfortunately, paragraph 2, we only reached 80% of our fundraising goals. And you have to explain this, right? It's bad news, and you have to make it very clear why this happened, preferably by not putting blame on the organization. For instance, right now, the economy is an excellent explanation for why we may not meet why we may not meet fundraising goals. Okay, so then in the follow-up paragraph, you want to sandwich it again. You want to try to end on a positive note, so you can talk about how, but we still met 80% of our goals, and here are all the good things that we can do with that money. Okay? So that's sort of the format. That sandwich, that 3-paragraph sandwich, is how big bad newsletters look. So again, be sure to justify your decisions. Be sure, again, because this is legal, that you never put anything in a bad news letter that you cannot support with evidence. Don't blame the company. Don't say you're sorry. State it as positively as you possibly can. This is why if you've ever seen a letter in which someone is officially dismissed from a job, it might conclude with, we're hopeful that this will give you an opportunity to seek more suitable employment, something you enjoy more. Because we've learned through many, many years of writing these bad newsletters that not ending with a little note of hope or positivity is worse than actually doing that, even if it does sound insincere. So, positive, to buffer for the bad news, give the bad news, and build them back up. Always close on that positive note. Good luck.